which is the Russian-Cameroon military accord. DDC, take over.
Since 2015, the Cameroon state had engaged in conversation, very high conversation, to have military alliance with the Russian Federation. A lot of experts thought that that alliance was a means to lure the Russians to guarantee certain investment that Cameroon couldn't have from her partners in the West. And we are now uh, almost 10 years after that period, Cameroon in the middle of a war that the United Nations have voted as an invasion into a sovereign state, have signed a military accord with Russia. As they say back home, when God wants to destroy a nation, he makes the leader to make big mistake. Ambassador Thibaut Nagy, the former Secretary of State for African Affairs, has said that this is good for Ambazonia. Mr. President, we are all very, very happy to find Paul Biya losing his shield. We know that the French government have worked so hard to shield Cameroon in the United Nations Security Council when the British brought up conversation about the crisis. We know that the TPS was prevented from being signed by Pontus due to a lot of objection from their French partners. Now the French could not get the Cameroon state to vote with them against the Russian war in Ukraine. Mr. Paul Biya and his Bulu Beti clique taking this decision to join Russia at this critical moment. How do you think it will affect Cameroon's shield diplomatically? Do you think this is going to be a turning point where the Americans will say, France, you have to let go of this mad king. We have to deal with this man for the criminal he is. This is the Hitler of Africa. You cannot continue to shield somebody that poked us in our eye. What this guy is going to do in Ambazonia tomorrow with Russia, God forbid, we become the new Chechnya in Africa. What do you say, Mr. President?
A couple of things. First, the accord is not driven by the conflict in Ambazonia, and I would like Ambazonians to be aware of this. That this was something in the woodworks, as you say, as far back as 2015 or 14. So it is not informed by the conflict. Somehow it is also because the I think the cabinet of Cameroon had not wanted to okay it for a while, probably due to pressure from the French. And so by going now to okay it in the midst of this international row is a clear-cut statement on the pivot of Cameroon. It would have been dangerous for Ambazonia if our struggle was to unseat or overthrow the regime in Yaoundé. It would have been very dangerous because the Russians have a direct intervention military strategy. So if they want to save an ally, they really do it. You know, if Ukraine was a Russian proxy state, they would have been more proactive than the Americans. So Russia is not stupid, and as I said in my initial reaction, Russia's involvement in conflict is strategic in nature. It's rarely seen that Russians would go support a state simply because it is fighting against separatists. It did that in former Yugoslavia, but it didn't work out well. And it did that because former Yugoslavia was part of the Russian axis. So this accord is not good for Cameroon, but it's not also bad for Cameroon depending on how Ambazonia functions. The Americans will not see this accord and say, okay, it's time to pull the block on Cameroon because it has consequences. If the Russians take over Cameroon, it has implications on France's influence in Central Africa, in Chad, and other places. It sets a bad precedent for them. So the West is going to avoid, a precedent that will have far-reaching repercussions. The only way this accord is going to work well for us and for the West is when Ambazonia ups its game. When Ambazonia ups its game, this accord will not save La Republique from Ambazonia. It might keep Biya acolytes in power. For example, Biya's son or whosoever might replace Biya might be supported by the Russians against the Northeast axis or against any other axis that might be emerging to fight for power. But it will not undermine Ambazonia's drive towards independence. The Russians will not support Cameroon against Ambazonia. There is no precedence in that. It doesn't work for the Russian interest either. So Ambazonia has a take-home here. This slap on the face of France, slap on the face of the United States, should give Ambazonians the opportunity to redouble their effort on the ground and shift the political equilibrium in their favor so that we can give justification to either the Americans or the French to take far-reaching steps to force Cameroon's hands either on the table or to charge key elements of the Cameroon regime for the crimes that they are committing in Ambazonia. The instruments that the West usually use are international criminal law instruments, charging people for crimes against humanity, banning them from travel, confiscating their assets. And I think this is an opportunity for Ambazonians to also factor this in its own direct diplomatic push to make sure that assets of La Republique, persons are seized, international travels are banned, and then Cameroon is made a pariah at the level of the international system, being thrown out of the Human Rights Council, and making Cameroon, support for IMF or World Bank loan extremely very difficult. It will give us a huge leverage going forward.
Mr. President, a security analyst called Michael Alobede, who writes for TV Arise in Nigeria, he made some comments in some newspapers in Nigeria and in Ghana that there have been agitation by some Nigerian top officials and some officials within the ECOWAS who have been concerned about Russian mercenaries operating within West Africa regarding this issue, and they have indication that they have raised some protests to the Cameroon state. How do you think this will benefit Ambazonia in terms of support or sympathy from the ECOWAS, which we were part of as part of when we were jointly governed with Nigeria? We're part of the West African bloc. Do you think this also have a potential to create avenue, since the ECOWAS had given statement after the Ukrainian war in regards to Ambazonian conflict, calling us by our name, the Southern Cameroons? Do you think this also have a potential to have backlash of Cameroon, its collaboration with Nigeria, and also sympathy for Ambazonia from ECOWAS?
Yes. The ECOWAS bloc is caught in the middle. One, it has the various constituent countries within ECOWAS have domestic agitations, where they are also afraid that Russian interests in using its own outsourcing security apparatus might undermine state stability. And so for a state like Cameroon to become engaged with Russia is a threat. It's a threat to their own national security and sovereignty. On the other hand, moving too fast towards Ambazonia also has the potential of igniting different peoples within their own states that are seeking the right to self-determination, to give them, a new hope that if they can basically support Ambazonia, and then they also have the right to external self-determination. So the ECOWAS is caught in the middle here. But ECOWAS has always been an opportunity for Ambazonia because of the conflict between West Africa and Central Africa. For West Africa has always seen Central Africa as the gateway for France's new colonial policies within the continent. And West Africa has had some level of political independence in making decisions, whether on monetary issues or trade and stuff. And they've realized that bringing Central Africa has always been a problem. So the Amazonian question within the ambit of Central Africa is of interest to West Africa. And if we had made more inroads within the bloc of ECOWAS, it will give us an advantage. But I can assure you that this accord with France, with Russia, we need to exploit it, and we are going to exploit it, and it's going to work. It's going to work for us.